If you're looking for Magic cards, look no further than Flipside Gaming. They have all the latest Magic singles and product that you need to actually leave the house and battle in Magic the Gathering. And right now, if you would like to save 10% on your orders from Flipside Gaming, use the promo code CGB at checkout. That is promo code CGB. Hello, welcome back to another day in the arena. It's me, it's CGB, and I'm excited today to be playing an Izzet Drake's deck for you that was piloted in the Pro Tour by Yuuya Watanabe. Yuuya Watanabe is one of my favorite Magic the Gathering players. He is a Japanese Magic the Gathering player who is a former world champion from 2012. That's pretty neat. Rookie of the Year in 2007, and has 5 Pro Tour top 8s and 27 Grand Prix top 8s. The guy has put up obscene numbers since becoming Rookie of the Year in 2007. He is now in the Pro Tour Hall of Fame. He got added to the Pro Tour Hall of Fame in 2016, so at least the way that the Pro Tour Hall of Fame currently works is you get invited to every single event afterwards, so you should see him in almost every major Pro Tour tournament on coverage. I am confident he will turn out to be one of the top 32 players that Magic gives their new esports streaming contracts to. If you need more news about that, check out the Magic YouTube page. But I'm really looking forward to seeing Yuuya play even more, if that is the case. I became a big fan of Japanese Magic in the early 2000s. Some old references here for the old timers. Apologies if you're new, but maybe you can look them up if you're curious. But my favorite player then was Kenji Samura, and I really enjoyed how the Japanese players would show up to Pro Tours with unique decks like Gazi Glare that nobody else had really thought of. The internet was different back then, Magic was different back then, and event after event the Japanese were always putting up amazing numbers. Nowadays they still have some very, very good players, and it's not unusual to have Japanese players in the top 8s of Pro Tours, and Yuuya is always lurking and among them, and he made top 8 once again in the most recent Pro Tour Guilds of Ravnica with this deck, a Drake's deck, and you have seen this deck around. If you're playing Arena at all, you've already witnessed the deck. The Crackling Drakes and Enigma Drakes become very big. The Arclight Phoenixes come out of the graveyard when like a huge amount of spells are cast and an incredible amount of damage is done. Let's go ahead and cover the deck really quickly. Only a few things really stand out to me. One, no Tormenting Voice, just Radical Idea. Yuuya opted that route probably because it's 2 spells in one, and there's a Goblin Electromancer available to make it cost only 1 for each activation. Then there is one spicy little one of a Maximized Velocity, because if you have one in your hand or the graveyard, you can boost up your Drakes and hit with them much quicker. There's more creatures than the typical build. This one has 3 Crackling Drakes and 4 Enigma Drakes, giving a nod to how important it is to have a turn 3 play. Without Enigma Drake, there just aren't many turn 3 plays, especially if your Goblin Electromancer dies and you need to put something on the battlefield. And of course, the draws where you get multiple Arclight Phoenixes are very exciting. There is no way to activate the Dispersal side of Discovery in the deck. Absolute zero. So this is only the front side. Surveil to draw a card. Because of all the cards that draw cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and we're not even counting Crackling Drake, that are 2 mana or less, we only have to have 21 land. So a bit of a lower land count. And because we don't have as many red spells as we have blue spells, and we need to cast multiple spells a turn to bring back the Phoenix, we lean a little heavier into the blue side of things. Next, we're going to do a sideboard guide and talk about how to sideboard against various matchups. First, we'll introduce the sideboard: a Spell Pierce, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 3 Firemind's Research, a Beacon Bolt, a Murmuring Mystic, 2 Rahl Izzet Viceroy, 2 Niv-Mizzet, and 3 Entrancing Melody. If you want to skip that and get to the games, you are totally welcome to. I will try to put timestamps in the description. And if you are curious about my sideboard guide or choices, I will tell you straightforward, I do not have a DM Twitter relationship with Yuuya Watanabe. I do not know exactly how Yuuya would sideboard in every single matchup that we come across. I cannot guarantee that my take on it is correct, but I will do my best to come up with plans that make sense, which is the main thing you need to do when learning to sideboard. Have a plan, make it make sense, and be flexible. Those are, I guess I'll throw be flexible on there because, as you'll probably see in my games, I don't always follow even my own sideboard guide when I become kind of like convinced that a certain card or certain strategy will be the important thing in the matchup, either based on how my opponent plays or some unique card choices that they use. Okay, I'm going to get into the sideboard guide now. The first deck we're going to talk about in sideboards is Mono Blue Aggro, which still runs pretty rampant on Arena. When you see this little guy, this is what you have to be thinking. You have to be thinking getting as low to the ground as possible and killing all of their stuff. The cards that are most likely to get cut in any kind of aggressive matchup, whether it's Boros, red, or blue, are the Goblin Electromancers and the Radical Idea. Radical Idea as a draw spell is the least cost efficient cantrip card drawer that we have in the deck, and Goblin Electromancer is similarly just a little bit slow and clunky. It won't really block anything. It will reduce the cost of our removal spells, but they're already pretty cheap, and we'd rather be killing things than playing on a Goblin Electromancer in these situations. So that is what I would take out. What I would add to the deck is a little bit fluid. So yes, we want one Spell Pierce. We want to get that into the deck. One Beacon Bolt, more removal, just get those Tempest Djinns dead. And then the 3 Entrancing Melodies you want, even without the Electromancer in the deck. Entrancing Melody stealing a Mistcloaked Herald with a Curious Obsession can be a very good play for 3 mana, and it can force the opponent to have their interaction spell immediately. Most of these spells out of blue are very cheap. So then this is the conflict. This is the part where like play draw matters. On the draw, I want Izzet Viceroy, and I want both of them to try to get something that can kill an opposing creature sooner, as we want to spend nearly every single turn of the game either killing or drawing, killing or drawing, killing or drawing. And of course, playing something that could block, like an Enigma Drake or a Crackling Drake, is a fine play too. And then we want to get to a Niv-Mizzet. If we're on the draw, Niv is 6, so we want the other Raw at 5. If we're on the play, getting to Niv is a bit easier, so I would run both Niv-Mizzets on the play. And I would only run one on the draw and have the other Raw. I hope that makes sense. Niv-Mizzet coming down is usually game over for the blue decks. There isn't much they can do. I've seen some of them running things like Deep Freeze. If that gets you, oops. But most of the decks you'll encounter, at least in Arena, nobody has deep frozen my Niv-Mizzet on Arena. So keep an eye on what they play. If they do deep freeze you in game 2, it's quite possible you should cut Niv-Mizzet completely and get Rawl back in there and possibly let the Murmuring Mystic do some work for you as well. Although I find it a bit slow against the blue deck. The next deck we're going to talk about is the Mirror Match, Drakes on Drakes. How to sideboard in that match. I really prefer to take out Goblin Electromancer against any deck with Shock. However, there is a weird cat and mouse game that can go into this sideboarding. Did the opponent see a Goblin Electromancer in game 1? Probably. This deck is very good at going through its deck. You draw a lot of cards, you see a lot of cards. It's quite likely the opponent saw the Goblin Electromancer. If they did not see it though, it is quite possible they will sideboard their Shocks out of the deck, in which case Goblin Electromancer becomes a lot better and you can bring it back in. If the opponent definitely saw Goblin Electromancer and they shocked it, it is very likely you should be taking out Goblin Electromancer because your opponent will leave their Shocks in, and they don't have good targets most of the time. The dance continues. These kind of sideboarding dances are all about what they will do, what you will do, etc. My personal preference and my default is to take out 2 Shocks because I don't know if my opponent will sideboard out their Electromancer or if they have them. Base that on what you see in game 1. And I like to take out my 4 Goblin Electromancer. I replace them with Firemind's Research. This card isn't really something that the Drake deck can interact with, and once you cast a few cantrips to get up to 5 counters on it, it can kill Niv-Mizzet without triggering Niv-Mizzet, and it can take down pretty much any Drake, so it becomes just a consistent removal spell that they can't do anything about, which is pretty nice. You can expect the Drake deck to sideboard in Niv-Mizzet because that's what Drake decks do these days. Also, we have a Beacon Bolt, another way to kill Niv-Mizzets and Drakes that get on the battlefield, and we have our own Niv-Mizzets to go over the top of the opponent as well. Usually in the sideboarded games, you want to prioritize 2 things. 1, you really want to Firemind's Research early. If you don't have it, dig. 2, you want to keep the opponent's creatures away. You don't want to deploy your own unless your opponent, you want to take away from your opponent's momentum. It's not really that important to have the first Drake. In fact, most of the time it's not important to have a Drake at all. With all the card draw and removal that can be played, the Drakes are basically fodder. They're going to be hit with Lava Coils and things like that. There are several times when you don't even want to cast your Drake, especially Enigma Drake because it doesn't draw a card. Because if your opponent has an Arclight in the graveyard, they can use their Lava Coil on your Drake along with like a Radical Idea, something like that, to bring back their Arclight Phoenix. So keep in mind, if you're playing a Drake into an opponent with a full hand and an Arclight Phoenix in the graveyard, are you just giving them a way to get back their Arclight Phoenix right now? You might say, does it get better? It could. If you play your own Arclight Phoenixes to draw out removals like Beacon Bolts and Shocks, then the Drake may become more useful. You might be able to maximize Velocity the Drake later in the game, and you might be able to play Niv-Mizzet. And if you play Niv-Mizzet, the opponent has to burn like multiple Lava Coils and things like that to get through it, then your Drake may be uncontested later. Also, Firemind's Research, you might be able to win the game without playing the Drake at all. You may need to discard it to a Radical Idea or Chart a Course if your Firemind's Research is going really well. So those are some unique lines of play that come up in the mirror. Maybe talking about them isn't the most helpful, but you can try to think of them and perhaps we'll see them on video as well. The next deck we're going to talk about in our sideboard guide is Boros tokens / White Weenie / Selesnya tokens. These decks are very different and you could go into the sideboard nuances of each, but I'm going to try to address them at once because the main plan is that you need to be on the battlefield quickly and keep their best threats from overwhelming you. So the cuts are usually very similar, at least. Goblin Electromancer can stay in the deck. Removal is not their specialty. Conclave Tribunal is a pretty good removal spell, but they can only have up to 4 of them, and the targets for that spell are going to be very taxed by Enigma Drake, Arclight Phoenix, etc. So you can keep your Goblin Electromancer. What I'm sure I want to cut is Radical Idea. The card is definitely too slow in both card output and cost to be very effective, and the other cards I cut are Crackling Drakes because for 4 mana it's a little bit late to the party. Now then becomes what I'm sure I want to bring in, and this part gets a little complicated. So Niv-Mizzet is a really good finisher, but if Crackling Drake is late to the party, Niv is very late to the party. If I'm on the play, I might want 1 or 2 because often they can't beat the card. It comes down and then the rest of their tokens and everything dies. But this is where you have to figure out what you're playing against. If it's a Selesnya deck that's kind of closer to a mid-rangey thing, Niv is probably really good to add. If it's a really low to the ground white aggro deck that's mostly creatures, then Niv probably isn't what you want. Is it a Boros deck with heroic reinforcements? Okay. The things that I know I want are Entrancing Melody to grab their Vanguards and Benelish Marshals, and Murmuring Mystic to clog the board with a whole bunch of birds. But the other cards that you could bring in, Spell Pierce, Disdainful Stroke. Are you against the Boros deck that runs heroic reinforcements and possibly Experimental Frenzy or Aurelia Exemplar of Justice after sideboarding? If you are, Disdainful Stroke could be very good. If you are against a super low to the ground deck and it's only perhaps its only spell that costs a lot is Venerated Loxodon, it's really hard to catch a Loxodon with this because they can happen on turn 2 or 3. You probably need to be on the play if you're even bringing in Disdainful Stroke at all. And if the opponent is only casting low to the ground cards, you can get run over. It's not a great idea. So it really fluctuates in value depending on what you're up against. Spell Pierce, on the other hand, is almost always pretty good. It can tag a History of Benalia, which is a pretty big game, and it can tag a Conclave Tribunal, which is a really big game because they tapped some of their creatures to cast that Tribunal, probably targeting an Enigma Drake. So another reason that we can consider Disdainful Stroke is Electromancer. Disdainful Stroke is a lot better if you can play it for 1 mana on turn 3 after casting an Electromancer. So probably this package is going to be the most common against the Boros token decks that we see the most, that were popular at the Pro Tour. If my opponent were like super low to the ground white aggro, I would probably leave out the Disdainful Strokes and hope to get to Niv, or I'd bring the Crackling Drakes back. Rawl is too hard to protect in these kind of matchups and is usually a 5-mana Beacon Bolt, and Beacon Bolt itself is pretty slow and pretty clunky, and Firemind's research is way too slow. This is a very tough matchup, and usually you have to find your time to race. So I think against the super low to the ground white deck, I would take the Disdainful Strokes out, not being sure I could catch anything with them, and bring some of the Crackling Drakes back to the deck. Next, we're going to talk about the battle with Golgari midrange. This is an interesting one. I found that the games I fail the most in this battle are the ones where the Wild Growth Walker goes nuts. So I like to revolve my sideboard strategy around if my opponent can get a good Wild Growth Walker going. Their deck has a lot of good answers to what we do for the most part. Our Drakes are easily handled by Chupacabra and Vivian Reed, making the Drakes very expendable. Also, Cast Down has become very popular in the deck, which is instant speed, which can mess with maximized velocity. Always keep that in mind. And you're very reliant on your Arclight Phoenixes showing up and getting in early. What they don't have a good answer for is Goblin Electromancer, so most of the time your Electromancer will live, letting you dig like crazy to try to find the crucial Arclight Phoenix, which I know is not a word. I just like it. So that's sort of the plan. Hope for an early Electromancer and to do a lot of digging. With that in mind, you still need to be quick to the board, which means that your radical ideas are still a bit too slow when you're getting beaten down by the Explore package. So instead what I want to run are Disdainful Strokes to specifically catch Ravenous, Chupacabra, and Vivian Reed, and possibly Doom Whisperer. We'll get more to Doom Whisperer in a minute. And then we have Entrancing Melody. And Entrancing Melody should be mainly trying to take the Wild Growth Walker after the Explore nonsense happens. The opponent, if you can't remove it with a Lava Coil, and there's only 3, if the Wild Growth Walker gets explored and the Jade Light Ranger pumps it up, now Entrancing Melody taking it away is probably your best solution. And plus, a big Wild Growth Walker is something that they now have to Chupacabra or deal with before they can use more. So I like going to the Entrancing Melody solution. It's even better if your opponent is also playing Doom Whisperer. However, if they are also playing Doom Whisperer, not only are your Disdainful Strokes better, but you may also even want to bring in the Beacon Bolt, possibly shaving on yet another Enigma Drake. You still do want some large Drakes. You want the maximized velocity Drake plan. A lot of games can come down to it still, even with Cast Down available. If the opponent taps out for, say, a Carnage Tyrant, and you can Drake them for 12, that is usually good enough to help carry you the rest of the way. But if there are too many big creatures, you may want the Beacon Bolt as well, possibly shaving another Enigma Drake. So that's my take on the Golgari matchup. It often becomes a race. Does the opponent nut draw you with Wild Growth Walker Explorer stuff? Then hopefully you can Entrancing Melody to take some of the power away from that. Does the opponent put out a big Doom Whisperer that you can't deal with? Hopefully Entrancing Melody can snag it with some help from some Goblin Electromancers. Next, we're going to talk about playing against everybody's favorite, Teferi, the hero of Dominaria. Against Jeskai Control, how should you sideboard? So some parts are easy. Cutting removal is a very easy choice. So the Lava Coils, you can go. These Shocks, you can go. But that still leaves us with 4 cards and a whole bunch of cards that I'd love to bring in. The Spell Pierce, the Disdainful Stroke, the Firemind's Research, the Rawl Izzet Viceroy, and the Niv-Mizzets. I want pretty much threats from all around. But you have to ask yourself a very important question when making the final cuts here. How good is Goblin Electromancer in the matchup? Did you play against a Jeskai deck that uses Shock or Justice Strike? Did they keep in cards like that? If their removal on 2 was Seal Away, you can play around Seal Away. You can leave your Electromancer back, or you can attack it into the Seal Away, hoping they'll seal it away to make room for your Drakes because you have another Electromancer. You only really need one at a time. Most of the time, the Jeskai deck will not keep in Deafening Clarion just to deal with Arclight Phoenix and Electromancer. So if the only thing you saw that would just straight up kill an Electromancer is a Deafening Clarion, often leaving them in can be right. And when you want to leave them in, you want to keep Ral, the Izzet Viceroy, on the bench, and then you can probably also leave behind a Firemind's Research and maybe a Spell Pierce, maybe a Disdainful Stroke, something like that. It's actually kind of hard to make the final trims in that specific spot. Another question is Ixalan's Binding. Did you see it? If you saw Ixalan's Binding, it doesn't make sense to have 4 of your threat cards. So it can make a lot of sense if you see Ixalan's Binding or expect Ixalan's Binding to trim a Goblin Electromancer, to trim an Enigma Drake, and to bring in like 2 Firemind's Research. You don't want to get stuck with too many in your hand. You want a good threat variety against Ixalan's Binding. And right now we have too many cards on our sideboard, but as I talk through it, hopefully you get an idea of what I'm talking about. So diversifying with a Ral and 2 Research instead of the full 3, something like that. If your opponent runs Shock or they're Esper and they run Moment of Craving, anything of that nature, we want the Goblin Electromancers completely out of the deck. You may even see them in game 2 and be able to make this adjustment there. Then you want all the Firemind's Researches into the deck, and you want to go bigger. You probably want to keep all of your Enigma Drakes to be the aggressor, and you want to add the Ral Izzet Viceroy to remain the aggressor as well, and just be able to be slamming threats that are harder for them to deal with every single turn, over and over and over, until they hopefully die. It is also, like, there are times where you want Shock. They could sideboard in a few creatures. The most popular one these days has been Legion Warboss. I don't see how that's good against Drakes, and I really don't think they should do that, but it is a possibility. It could happen. Be ready for it. And then the other thing to always try to keep in mind is that they could sideboard in Lyra Dawnbringer, which can blank your whole battlefield. This is a very good reason to keep at least some combination of Firemind's Research and Ral Izzet Viceroy in the deck, because those cards can kill a Lyra Dawnbringer, but the rest of your deck probably can't. Maybe you can catch it with a Disdainful Stroke if you're feeling lucky. But this matchup is another fluid one. You have to figure out how to sideboard based on what you see. Against a very typical Jeskai deck that is going around right now without Shocks and with Deafening Clarion as its cheaper removal, I would default to running Goblin Electromancer, and there aren't many Ixalan's Bindings in those decks either, so I would keep all my Drakes. My Drake package could stay for reals. I'm going to move some things around here. And then I would really want the Firemind's Research, but I don't know if I would want all of them. And the Murmuring Mystic, I think I could leave behind. So I think I would go to 2 Firemind's Research here. Ready to, if they have cheap ways to get rid of the Electromancer though, bring it back in. The Firemind's Research also, we're not going to talk about this matchup, but blue-black control and Esper control with a little splash of white is where Firemind's Research is a real important card. So keep that in mind. And yeah, I would sideboard something like this for the traditional Jeskai deck that I see these days, or possibly like the Turvo Niv-Mizzet deck. If you're up against a deck that's running like 4 Niv-Mizzet in Treasure Map, it's possible that Firemind's Research is where you want to be, so that you can try to get a turn 2 Firemind's, and by the time they resolve their Niv, you can go -5 charge counters dead. The final deck we're going to talk about sideboarding against is Mono Red Aggro. And against Mono Red, we want to get very low to the ground, and we want to get very efficient, and we want to beat them in the air with 1 or 2 attacks from Giant Drakes and kill everything we can. To help with that plan, we have a Spell Pierce to hopefully counter a Lightning Strike, or maybe even snag an Experimental Frenzy if we're lucky. Also countering a Lava Coil can be a very big game when they sideboard those in to take on your Drakes. Then we have a Beacon Bolt, which can kill 2 things, and that's about all that we're really asking it to do, even though it's a little slow and clunky. And Entrancing Melody, even just stealing a Wizard for 3 mana or a Runaway Steamkin for 4, is a good swing in your favor that you're looking to do. Now, we're not the most efficient removal spells coming in, but what we're taking out is even less efficient. Goblin Electromancer comes out because the opponent has Shock. Radical Idea comes out because it's super inefficient versus red. That leaves us some spots, and similar to mono blue, on the play I'm happy to bring in Niv-Mizzet, because if we get to Niv-Mizzet and it lives, we often win the game. And on the draw, I want Rahl Izzet Viceroy as a expensive type Beacon Bolt that can draw cards if the opponent doesn't launch Burn at it. I've tried with Disdainful Stroke, and I may try again. I go back and forth on this. On one hand, yes, Disdainful Stroke on Rekindling Phoenix, Disdainful Stroke on Experimental Frenzy. On the other hand, how about we just race the Frenzy and use Lava Coil on the Phoenix? If we're able to save a Lava Coil for the Phoenix and race the Experimental Frenzy with Drakes in the air, I don't think we need Disdainful Stroke, and it's so bad against all the other cards in their deck. If they just draw a low to the ground, very aggressive hand, you're not in good shape. And because of this, especially without Goblin Electromancer in the deck anymore to make this 1 mana, I think you have to be on the play to consider Disdainful Stroke, and it's part of the sideboard I'm still figuring out, whether or not to Disdainful Stroke the red mage or not. All right. That wraps up my sideboarding guide. I hope you found it useful. Let's get into games. Maybe you'll see some of these strategies at work. All right, we're on the draw. We're in a best of 3 competitive play scenario, and it's a hand with the right land and some cantrips. I think that's what you're looking for in these games. Another land off the top, not good, but there's a lot of ways to filter the draw, so it's far from over. I'll pay 2 life because I want to start opting basically right away. And a Chart of Course is great. Nothing wrong with keeping a Chart of Course here. So normally I would hold up Radical Idea. Against blue-black, I feel like they're going to try to make me discard. Although they are leaving mana open, and getting this negated or syncopated would be sad. Alright, they didn't Thought Erasure me on turn 2, so we'll do the Radical Idea instead. All right, drawing cards, doing things, taking our time. Still, let's see, if we do Chart Opt next turn, we can get an Arclight Phoenix, so that will be the current plan. I think I'll save my Radical Idea. It might just be safer to bring back the Radical Idea than cast the Chart, of course, which could be worth 2 cards in the future. So we're saving our cantrips. There's another Radical Idea. That's good. So let's flashback Radical Idea. Let's discard the Arclight Phoenix. Draw a card. Opponent could have a Vraska's Contempt here, but if so, it's fine. Life goes on. Another Radical Idea. Sure. Ways to keep the value train going are probably the best things I could be finding. Dig, dig, dig. Get back a Phoenix. See if we can pressure the opponent here, or if they just contempt this Phoenix. They do. I'm sure they're very proud of themselves. I did it! Got rid of the Phoenix! Alright. Crackling Drake is most likely to die. And there's counter magic open. I'm going to play a Guildgate and draw more cards with Radical Idea instead of throw out my Crackling Drake. Now our opponent opts. Yeah, they're sitting there on a bunch of spells. I'm sure that Thought Erasure comes into play at some point, but we haven't seen anything like that yet. Okay, let's do another one. Goblin Electromancer. Do you want to come out and party for me? I suppose. Let's see if this resolves. Nice. Probably going to die very quickly, but let's get a cheap discovery for it. Another Crackling Drake and an Opt. Well, I'll take the Opt and deploy the Crackling Drake next turn, leaving it on top where it's safe. And let's see. There's no reason to do like a Turbo Diggy type turn right now because we don't have an Arclight Phoenix. So we can pass the turn from here. The question is, do I want to play this tapped? And then I can discard the other lands to Radical Ideas and get deeper in the deck. Yeah, I think that's fine. That way I don't... You never know. You might need the life even though we're up against a blue-black control deck. It doesn't seem like the life is very important. Golden Demise. All right, in response, let's drop off some land that we have a bit much of. And keep the deck going. Down goes our little Electromancer. Well, now our opponent would have to have exactly Essence Scatter. Do you think they do? There's one way to find out. This is already playing around Syncopate without playing our other land yet, so let's give it a try. Enigma Drake. So we could cast Enigma Drake here. We could also keep playing around Syncopate by playing Electromancer, which I like better. Might as well not open up any doors. Blue-black control. Syncopate's usually in there somewhere, and there's an Eldest Reborn, and they're tapped out. Oh boy. I want you to hit me as hard as you can. Down goes the Electromancer. Let's get an Opt going. How hard can we hit them? There's a Phoenix. Let's chart this course. Drop off this Phoenix. Let's chart this. Nope. They don't want to see how this goes. They know this story. That is, when you can't answer a Drake anymore, you die. All right, blue-black control. Firemind's research can do an absolute number on them. We saw Eldest Reborn, which they're probably going to lean on pretty hard. It makes me wonder if Niv is the right way to go, but Disdainful Stroke probably is, along with Spell Pierce. Rahl is probably awkward against them, but might be good. And Murmuring Mystic, maybe. So, what's going on here? Probably... We saw Golden Demise, which they'll probably take out, but they'll probably still keep something to deal with the Electromancer. So I'm not confident that this stays in the deck. Radical Idea probably can. I haven't seen anything to remove, but Thief of Sanity is a very easy sideboard card, but I don't think they should bring it in against us. So I'm going to take a chance that they do not go to Thief of Sanity. And being up a game makes taking that chance a lot easier. Electromancer will come out, Firemind's Research will stay in. And is that the way we roll? I think so. We still have the maximized velocity, still have all the arc lights, big old Niv plan. Don't know what we'd be entrancing. I'm guessing like Doom Whisper or something like that is their win con, but usually with these decks, the more blue-black decks I've been playing lately, it's all about the Eldest Reborn. Eldest Reborn is usually the win con and the removal at once. Oh, these hands. Come on now. Oh, Magic. Putting you on the bottom is so bad, but alas. Think we gotta do it. Fun. Opt down. Oh my god. Is Shuffler? What the hell? What is that? That is nonsense is what that is. Alright, Discovery. Don't need the Mystic right now. Got enough threats. Need land. Need spells. Alright, Fire 1. Resolves. So we still haven't seen counter magic out of this blue-black deck. Now, makes sense to not counter that if you have a cast down. 100% makes sense. I'm just wondering if we're going to... this is definitely a game where we're really keeping an eye out. Do they even bother countering spells? Not yet. Will this be an Eldest Reborn then? Which this would be the perfect time for one. Another cast down, and still no counter magic. Okay. Ooh. Well, we had a feeling Thought Erasure was in the deck. Niv down, the other Niv's on the bottom. This is about as bad as it gets. To discard or to play. Actually, I think I'm going to chart a course and put this Phoenix away. Oh, nice. So there is a Firemind's Research. That is a card that can get us back in the game. It's often a card a black deck has a very hard time dealing with. Okay, there's another one. Let's get this cooking. And as long as we have up a Disdainful Stroke, it's going to be very hard for them to do much that can mess with us. I'm going to drop off the other bird, am I? With this much land? I guess even the land can be useful. We do need to build up some resources. And then a few radical ideas, and we can probably get our birds back. Okay, draw go. Here's my Drake. Do you run counter magic? You do run counter magic. Had a feeling, but you never can be sure until you actually see it. And you wouldn't want to play around it if they didn't run it. Ral. Let's hold on to Ral until we can play it with a stroke available. If they discarded the Insight, we could counter this, but I don't think that's worth it. And they do run Syncopate. So maybe playing around that in the first game wasn't too bad of an idea. But they discarding it there means that their hand, they really like it. So I'm guessing Vraska's Contempt. I'm also guessing Eldest Reborn. Okay, what are you naming? Interesting. They could name the Disdainful Stroke to get it out of there. It's kind of funny to sideboard in an Unmoored Ego. You could name the Arclight Phoenix if you want, I suppose. It's a solution. They name Niv, and they get the one off the bottom and out of the graveyard. Okay. Feeling good about that. I'm liking that. Radical idea, huh? Let's see what happens. We may get enough to bring back some Arclights. Another research. Yeah, let's go for that. Resolve's easy. All right. Let's start rebuilding this hand. Our opponent will have 4 mana available. Is that worth taking down Disdainful Stroke for? I think right now we just discard the Ral because it's not doing anything. Our opponent could go to 5 mana, play a Doom Whisper. We'd need to counter that. Give me a card, please. There you go. Drake! Phoenix! So, still not enough to bring back our Arclight Swarm. I wonder if our opponent runs more Unmoored Egos. Let's play Enigma Drake and make the opponent figure out the solution. We've drawn a lot of creatures this game. Probably more than I would have liked to, and the opponents had no problem with all these cast downs dealing with them. Alright, let's bring back a radical idea. Or no. Let's wait till our turn. Okay, never mind. We'll just keep playing drakes that are quick to die. Alright, we could get our Disdainful Stroke played, which I think we should. Quite honestly, let's get it done. Because the opponent's just waiting for a way to force us to discard the Disdainful Stroke. If they have an Eldest Reborn, that really hurts, but it does open up a window. Maybe we can get back our Arclight Phoenixes. This game was probably lost when we mulled to 5, and we've been sort of fighting back the whole time. So if we lose from here, I'm not going to be too angry. But let's try to counter up on our Firemind's researches and see if we can hit them with everything we can from these Arclight Phoenixes. It's important to remember that we're about to have to discard a card as well. I guess that will be the choice. And remember, these are worth 10 damage if we can get them high enough. So right now, our opponent's at Virtual 1 if these hit. And they're scooping? Nas? I feel like that game had a little bit further to go, but I guess the Firemind's research is doing 10 damage. Just too intimidating. But that's game. All right, on the play. Best of 3 competitive play ladder. 1 land. Okay. Gonna need to find a red source. Gonna need to find that red mana. Uh-oh. And anytime you're stumbling for mana, the opponent is always mono red. They smell blood. They know. They always know. Well, I need this, but I need red mana more. Okay, if I kept the Drake, I would have been able to play a Drake next turn, which would have been awesome. But no. All right, land. Phoenix. Sacrificial lamb right here. I guess I'm using a radical idea. But chart, of course, does see more cards. So do we chart the course, or do we have the idea? I guess I can always discard the idea. Right now, that would be the most likely discard, and it is, so I'll chart the course. Finally, the red deck has decisions to make. What will they be? Steamkin! Shock your thing! Oh, Lava Runner. Okay. Well, I don't actually expect my Electromancer to do much, but I should keep it around for another turn, because this cost reduction could be critical. And you're not a shock. I could attack and get a 2-card draw with Chart of Course. 4-card draw with Chart of Course. Ooh. But I think trying to hit an Arclight Phoenix is much better. Come on now. Spoon them up. Nope. So what's the discard? Is it Opt? I think so. I think we want our creatures on the battlefield, and I think the rest of this turn is to Lava Coil a Steamkin. So I think Opt is the discard. Then we can follow up with a Crackling Drake next turn. Coil away your Steamkin. Where's those shocks when you need them? Now things start to die. Oh, there's those shocks. Our opponent nabbed them from us. Just you, huh? I think I still keep my Electromancer. It's actually holding these at bay. And if it eats lightning strikes, that's not terrible. And now I'll play something with 4 toughness. Okay, 2 Charter Courses to go with this Arclight Phoenix for next turn. I think that's where we want to be. Red Mage, what are you doing now? Yep, the frenzy begins. No 1-drop hit though. And here we go. Let's get crazy. Let's see how big we can hit our opponent for. And how many Arclight Phoenix we can draw. Velocity can be in the graveyard, that's fine. There's a radical idea. Let's chart a course. Hello, I'm charting this course. Would you like to firebrand something? We've got a really good shot at this one now because we can usually kill them in 1 or 2 punches with the Drakes. Drop off the radical idea. I drop off the Arclight Phoenix. What am I doing? So we could radical idea for a draw or chart a course and possibly hit another Arclight. So we'll go for that. It also can pump our Drake much more. There's a shock. This is looking very good all of a sudden. We also have maximized velocity into another Enigma Drake. So do we risk taking an attack step? Do we go for their face? We have 1, 2, 3, 14, 15, 16, 17, and they're at 20. Whereas next turn, we have Enigma Drake maximize its velocity, probably win the game if we just leave everything on defense. But that would require, like, if the Crackling Drake dies anyway, then I want to be able to win the game with the Enigma Drake no matter what. So I'm going to send the Crackling Drake. Hiya! You are at 9. And we'll hold the shock open to try to cut off our opponent's probably totally lethal killer attack that I'm sure they'll get with this frenzy turn. There's another lava runner. And they're done. Must have hit another frenzy or a chain whirler. And we go to game 2. Mono red. Let's cut the cards that are not very efficient. I was amazed our Electromancers lived as long as they did. I think we got very lucky. And let's also cut Radical Idea. And we just want lots of ways to kill things and interact on the cheap. As cheap as we can. So Entrancing Melody, stealing their stuff is a thing we want to try to do. Beacon Bolt is a thing we want to try to do. Rawl can kill stuff. Murmuring Mystic can clog up the board. Disdainful Stroke is one thing I keep messing with, because on one hand, you really have to counter Phoenix and Frenzy, and on the other hand, it's expensive, and it doesn't hit most of their deck. So it's like that or Rawl, right? And I think I'll go with the Stroke. We're on the draw. It may be really hard to leave up mana going into a turn where they would deploy a Frenzy, but we'll give it a shot. It's frustrating to cut the Electromancers after that is by far the best I've ever seen the Electromancers do against red. I've never seen a red deck draw as few Lightning Bolt type burn spells as they did in that game. It just never happens. And yet. So this hand is 4 land, which isn't great. Opt into Lava Coil. I guess I keep it for the removal. The maximized velocity, I don't know if you should be here. It's kind of a non-draw, but I'm going to try it. We'll see what happens. I'm grateful to have a removal spell and a little bit of card selection. But we really want to find no more lands at all. And Enigma Drake is what you want on turn 3. Just start getting 4 toughness down as quickly as possible, although Lava Coil makes that rough. No turn 2 creature. There's a chart, of course. I'll take it. Try to fix this ugly draw. I'm not going to Lava Coil this card. All right. Do we drop off a land or do we drop off the velocity? I think dropping off the velocity makes sense. I really don't think I'll ever use it too for like a 1-2 boom boom. I think having it in the graveyard is just fine. There's Goblin Chain Whirler. I had a feeling that was coming. Why else would the opponent not play a keep a hand without a 2-drop? And there is the Drake, but now that there's a Chain Whirler on the battlefield, I would rather get this card Lava Coiled right away and pass the turn back. And pass the turn back. And there's another one. Ugh. Okay. Let the Chain Whirling commence. Let's shock away this Firebrand, as Firebrand combined with the Chain Whirler is an easy way to go right through a Drake. And here comes a Crackling Drake. Hit me, card. Okay. So as bad as it feels, I do think I'm going to try to block this Chain Whirler and make the opponent, never mind, not this turn I'm not, as the 1 damage means blocking is a suicide mission. So I probably want to play Enigma Drake. Perhaps I should do a Discovery Dispersal first. I also have a spot where our opponent has 2 cards. They can't be great, and they don't feel like burn spells, or I think the opponent would try to ambush the Drake last turn. There is this weird thing where I could go for the maximize velocity line and try to kill my opponent. I don't think that's terrible. So if the opponent knocks us to 5, I really don't think the cards are burn spells. What are they? It might be a Rekindling Phoenix? In which case, if I draw a Lava Coil, I win? Well, I think it's worth a gamble. And we'll see if they've got it. If they're sitting on Experimental Frenzy, things like that, we might just have them. Let's see if they can do this. If they have more creatures like Steamkin and stuff. Okay, they have a Lava Coil. Ugh. That's not what we need to see. Hey, and a risk factor. I'm declining. You get 3 cards. I need to get this Drake to 10. That's totally doable. I don't know if we will do it, but we will try. Ooh, Murmuring Mystic is kind of the safe play, but I feel like I should go for the win. I really feel like I should go for the win in this scenario. Entrancing Melody, Graveyard, Drake, Graveyard. All right. Ooh, that's a very sad draw. 6, come on, shock. Shock, opt. Okay. Shock. Draw shock. Did we do it? Did we just do it? Unreal. All right, we're on the draw against somebody dressed like Chandra. Best of 3 ladder. I'm going to... Do I keep it? If I draw a land, the hand is very good. All I have to do is draw 1 out of 2 cards being a land. This is the kind of 1-lander I'm willing to gamble with. If not, that's what best 2 out of 3 is for. It's not the same amount of pressure as in best of 1. I'll pay 2 life just to have shock available. If our opponent is playing the mono blue deck, or if they play out an Electromancer, we want to be able to answer immediately. And there's a Fathom Fleet Captain. Not what I expected to be answering, but I'm glad I put shock open. And the land off the top is not there. Not there. Not there. We'll have to wait. So with the trigger on the stack for the Kitesail Freebooter, we'll fire a shock at it. See if the opponent runs Dive Down. So they do. All right. Have a look at the hand. Enjoy yourself. Dive down, pirates, friends. And they took the Lava Coil, and that's enough for me. Let's rally in the next two. So I'm going to treat the pirate deck much as I would treat a mono blue tempo deck, where we just want to be low to the ground and killing everything that we can. The Firemind's research is a permanent they can't really deal with, and when it gets ticking, it can kill things basically automatically. And Goblin Electromancer is also solid. What you don't want are cards that are very expensive. So as much as I love Crackling Drake, I don't think I rely on it for this matchup. And maximize velocity, trying to race them, is a very bad idea. Radical Idea is a bit inefficient, but we sort of want to keep it with both Electromancer and the research in the deck. So I think I run it something like this, relying on Arclight Phoenix, Firemind's research, and a couple Enigma Drakes to take the game. The rest of the deck is just trying to stay low, cheap, and mean. We could also bring in Nivs instead, maybe become the much bigger control deck and pull the Enigma Drakes all together. But having a 6-drop in against that kind of deck seems pretty bad. And I expect them to have some sort of ways to kill Niv. We could pull in the Melodies just to have all the possible cheap creature removal. I suppose that's fine. Then when we do win, eventually it will be with Arclight Phoenix that hopefully they can't really deal with, or Firemind's research going off. And then we're just all the removal we can possibly be against their cheap interaction deck. We're going to play first, and hopefully we get a Firemind's research. One land again. No land. Magic. It has to enter tapped anyway, so we might as well do it now. We'll end up paying 2 life one way or another. There was a sequencing where we could just plan to do this on 3 without paying life, but I want all my mana available every turn. I want to answer everything I can. Uh-huh. Knock yourself out. It's not a very great hand or anything. Lava Coil down. Land off the top, so they're feeling good about their mana position. Chart a course. Dig. Dig, baby. And we'll pass with an opt available. Did all the pirates get subbed out of the deck? I don't know. I don't know, but more opt is fine. Look out, Dispersal? On a Electromancer? Alright. Alright. Let's hope we find a Firemind's research. It's going to be a bad game if those are all buried, being our win con and all. We're the control deck, we're just down 1,000,000 cards to none. Don't worry about it. Everything's under control. Another Lava Coil. The opponent did take the first one, so I think we should keep it. They also know about Entrancing Melody, so they might be playing careful around that card. Sure. With no targets. Fun. Well, there's a Phoenix. I wonder if we just play that and start attacking. What could the opponent have? Vraska's Contempt to exile it, I suppose. We could discard it to the Radical Idea, though. But we wouldn't be able to draw anything to replay it this turn. I think we discard it to Radical Idea. I'm trying to think of when. I guess doing it now isn't that big of a deal. And another land, so we'll keep playing those out. Now we need to get those Ops, Discovery, Dispersals, Chart of Courses, Radical Ideas in the hand to bring back the Phoenix someday. Just casting it and attacking with it, I think, is just begging for sadness. Okay, you're that kind of deck. Well, dive down will make me sad. That I guarantee you. They took the Melody. All right. So, dive down, and they have 2 mana to pay for it. But let's see if we can... Let's go first for the Freebooter. Resolves. Oh, okay then. Now let's go for the Hostage Taker. Resolves. The sad news is I didn't get anything to Spell Pierce, so I can't get back my Phoenix. I thought that was my big turn. I had a big plan. Thief of Sanity's here. Okay. They know about the Melody. They could have a Lookout's Dispersal. I'm going to pay 2 life. And we're going to go 3 for Thief of Sanity. And hope that's a Lookout's Dispersal, not a dive down. And it is! Countered. Mine! Let's see if they have a way to kill it up their sleeve. They can get back the Hostage Taker, which is annoying. But I'll get a punch in, I think. No? They have enough mana now, don't they? But I exiled the Hostage Taker with Lava Coil, that's right. They're looking for it. It's not in the graveyard. It's not there. Don't bother trying to find her. She's not there. So what is there? Nothing. Absolute nothing. Let's see what we draw as maybe we just move this Storm Tamer out of the way. Nope. All right, if we draw a spell, we get our Phoenix back. We do not. There's the Chumperino. This whole draw has been awkward, but it's been enough to keep us in the game. We drew every Lava Coil in our deck. Storm Tamer coming back. And a Thought Erasure for nothing. Oh. Oh, the feel-bads. And they keep their top card. It must be a way to deal with this thief. I think, though... So I can get that top card. I can get that top card. So whatever they kept on top, which is probably a way to stop the thief. Yep. They can sacrifice their Storm Tamer to counter that. But then I hit them, and they know what I'm getting. Whatever it is, they don't want me to have it. I didn't see anything to really take care of a Niv. So I'm switching to the Niv game. Otherwise, I didn't see anything to Disdainful Stroke. I didn't see enough removal. I saw Hostage Taker. That's like the big thing I have to worry about. Hostage Taker on Niv. I didn't see anything to counter. I guess I saw some Lookouts Dispersals. I wonder if just going a lot bigger is the way to be. We can cut the Electromancers and just play this like big control deck. Killing all their stuff worked plenty well last game, so let's try it again. I think I got a little bit lucky. The Spell Pierce came up clutch. And we have it, along with a Melody, so let's keep. Our opponent goes to 6. They keep it, but they scry bottom. Could be a risky hand. There is a bird. Let's hope the birds do their work in this game. There's a captain. I will dismiss the captain from service immediately. Not even going to give my opponent time to mess around. Now I have an opt available. I think the opponent will take the Melody, so I'm going to hang on to the opt and then use it to try to find a removal spell after the booting has happened. And there goes the Melody. Here comes the opt. Beacon Bolt is pretty good. 2 cards in the graveyard, yep. 3, actually. Well, they said 3. Something, it counted Entrancing Melody because Entrancing Melody was, in fact, in exile, even though it was underneath the freebooter. Interesting. So we have a chart, of course. I think with Lookout's Dispersal open, I'm casting Arclight Phoenix into it, and if the opponent counters this, it just comes back. So one of those weird cases where casting the Arclight Phoenix is the play. I like casting it into open counter magic type mana. Yep, and we got their Lookout's Dispersal, so you see how that works. They're up to 6 lands. Their draw is very mana heavy, and they're playing out the freebooter into the Beacon Bolt, taking the Entrancing Melody. I may just ignore that freebooter, to be honest. I'm sure we can get it back someday anyway. Let's send in the Arclight Phoenix. I'm going to play a land so I can play around another Lookout's Dispersal, and I'm going to chart a course to draw 2, and there you go. Do I keep ignoring this freebooter? Well, I definitely will for now. I can Lava Coil it on my turn, and that can count as a spell towards the Arclight Phoenix, so we may as well save the action. Curious Obsession can happen. Yep, there it is. It's a thing. And a Siren Storm Tamer. And a Thief of Sanity. So our opponent plays out the hand. The question is, how do they get around our Arclight Phoenix? We don't have enough spells to bring back our Arclight Phoenix. Wait, yes we do. There's an Entrancing Melody under here. We could play that, but not for much. Play it for 0 to get back a bird? Is that even worth it? Well, let's start with what our opponent does know about. Actually, there's kind of an interesting dynamic here where the opponent has to attack. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. This is going to get interesting. Let's take out your freebooter. Let's discard this land. Do you protect it? Yes, they do. Okay. So now I can exile. How bold am I here? So I can exile the Thief of Sanity, and then the opponent has to attack with the Curious Obsessed creature. I don't think I like that much. I think I'll just take this out, and then I'll threaten to steal the Thief of Sanity next turn. And I'll pass the turn and make the opponent get through the Arclight Phoenix with a card off the top of their deck. It would be really bad, though, if they drew a removal spell, hit us with Thief, and took a Niv-Mizzet. Let me just say that would be a problem. Ooh, they did draw a Hostage Taker. Oh. Ouch. That's really good. And exactly what they needed to top deck a removal spell. I wonder how many in their deck would have done the job, and how lucky they just got. So a Radical Idea goes to our graveyard. That's a bit of a gift. We have another Phoenix in the graveyard, so I might want to save this until my turn. But I guess I'd have to draw exactly a 1-drop in order to use it. I think I'd rather to use it now. And another Lava Coil. Get back our Phoenix. Let's see, do we have enough? So we have 5 mana. We can cast 2 of these. We can steal the Thief and take out the Hostage Taker. Our opponent has something down here. It could be a Spell Pierce, the one of Spell Pierce. A Niv or a Ral seems really terrifying. I wonder if we want to actually keep an Entrancing Melody for what our opponent took. But taking a Thief seems so good. All right. I'm going to go after the Hostage Taker to get back my bird. And I'm going to Entrancing Melody the Thief. This is risky. Again, if the opponent took a Niv-Mizzet, this is not great. If they actually hit a Niv, how lucky are they for pulling that hostage taker and then pulling a Niv with Thief of Sanity? It would be a worst case scenario. A Rawl I could deal with. A Rawl comes out, kills one of these probably, and then turns around. And it looks like what they hit was a Discovery. They didn't even have the spells for a Rawl to kill one of these. And they didn't bin. They binned a Swamp, and they pulled another hostage taker. All right. The battle continues. It's on. Radical Idea off the top will probably let us get our Phoenix back. Let's start with a Discovery. And there's a Rawl. Now, we don't want to kill the hostage taker because that puts the Thief into play on our opponent's side. I do want that Spell Pierce, though, and I do want that Rawl. So perhaps getting back a Thief right now is not the plan. Rawl plussing is. So, yep. Let's grab that. Let's play you. Let's leave the Arclight Phoenix in front of the hostage taker.
Time to choose. Always so exciting.
Spell Pierce could still play a big role in the game, even with all this mana. Both of us are going to be trying to figure out who can play multiple spells a turn, and once that starts happening, you can still hit something with a Spell Pierce. Nobody's going to win this game without casting multiple spells a turn for the rest of the game. One spell a turn will not be strong enough. The Thief returns, and no attack. So, we could minus to kill Thief. We could also keep digging. And I like to dig.
Just want to peek. The weight is killing me.
Boom. Let's do this. Can't look out's Dispersal that. I'll keep back the Phoenix. At this point, we're the control. We win the longer this game goes now. Our opponent has to be the beatdown. So we're just going to protect Rawl and abuse Niv. And if that doesn't end the game, well, then the opponent can always say they took our best shot. And that's it. Well, I hope you enjoyed these competitive play decks with Yuuya Watanabe's Drake deck. I really like the deck. It has a ton of decisions, and if there's a deck that you can just try to get into mastering that will probably not get old anytime soon, this is a prime candidate for the job. I also hope you enjoyed looking at the different sideboard plans, some may see it as a contradiction, but even if you look at the sideboard guide I provide at the beginning of the video, we had to get off plan a few times in some of the matchups that we faced, and due to some of the cards we saw from our opponent, as well as being on the player draw, sideboarding is fluid. A guide is just a recommendation, a default, but it is a fluid experience, and you should be willing to experiment and play with it yourself. Now, here's the fun part. This is only part one. The Drake deck that Yuuya Watanabe piloted to a top 16 finish in the most recent Standard Grand Prix in Japan is very different from this deck. So I look forward to showing you another version of this deck, but it is a very different style of deck to show the evolution and how these decks can evolve as a metagame progresses. And that one list is not locked in for months and months as the only list that you play. So watch for that either later this week or early next week. We'll talk a little bit about the latest Yuuya Watanabe Drake list. And in the meantime, try out this one, give it a shot. I think you'll like it. Thank you for watching. As always, I will see you in the next video. My YouTube channel is proudly supported by HauntedFlower.com. Shipping officially licensed apparel anywhere in the world, and now featuring Magic the Gathering apparel and accessories. If you use the promo code CGB at your checkout, you can save 10% on any order. That's the promo code CGB at checkout on HauntedFlower.com. That's HauntedFlower.com.